Call of Duty Black Ops 6 is the most recent release in the long line of Call of Duty games and continues the Black Ops storyline throughout the year 1991. Filled with a biological weapon, a new rogue organization, and both new and old characters, this campaign is one of the better to be released in recent memory. Like my previous video on Cold War, timestamps will be mainly separated by missions or interludes to explain an organization, character, or plot device. Now, without further ado, let's get into the video. In late January of 1991, a CIA team consisting of Troy Marshall, Jane Harrow, and William Case Calderon are deployed by Langley to Kuwait following the start of Operation Desert Storm. Their mission was the capture of a high-profile Iraqi named Alawi to bring him into the custody of the CIA where they could drill him for information on targets within the country. Knowing that Alawi is currently trying to escape Iraq via Kuwait, the team wait until his convoy of guards reach the designated ambush point before calling in a stealth bomber to destroy the first and last vehicles, boxing in their target with no means of escape. Once the payload is delivered, the three operatives move to the wreckage and pull Alawi from the vehicle, much to his confusion, saying that he had already made a deal with the CIA and he was driving to meet with his contact now. Despite the weird situation, the team are forced to move on as hostile helicopters fly overhead, which the Iraqi recognizes as Pantheon, a group nobody else has heard of. With their mission to keep Alawi alive, they fight through the new faction's fighters to their vehicle when a different driver emerges and kills the Iraqi with a single shot. The shooter allows himself to be captured, allowing the team to recognize him as Russell Adler, a former CIA agent who seemingly betrayed the US and went rogue during a mission in Panama. Adler states that Alawi couldn't be allowed to fall into the hands of the Pantheon or the CIA, and keeps quiet as the group capture him and escape the country, giving only one phrase to tell his partner, Frank Woods: Bishop takes Rook. Upon returning to Langley, they are faced with their boss, Livingstone, who chews out the group for failing their one objective, and seemingly making up a paramilitary organization that just appeared out of nowhere. Frank Woods, Marshall's mentor and manager, is also included in the scolding, saying that his past has influenced Marshall into the agent he is today, and there is no longer a need for global gunslingers now that the Cold War is over. Despite being questioned on the subject, Woods claims he has no knowledge of what Adler could have meant by Bishop takes Rook, despite the message being meant for him. Livingstone takes Woods, Case, and Marshall and places them on suspended leave, while Harrow is on thin ice but safe for now due to her higher position. The four meet in Jane's office following their suspension, where Woods tells her that him, Case, and Marshall are going to take some time off on a trip to reflect on their actions. Of course, almost everything Woods told the CIA was a lie. He did know what Adler meant in his message, and took the trip not to reflect as a group, but to follow where that message would take them. The Rook was an abandoned KGB safehouse in Bulgaria that Woods and Adler had discovered some 15 years prior, when the Cold War was still going strong. Supposedly, this safehouse was so secret that not even their mole in the KGB, Dmitry Belikov, was able to find any mention of it, and theorized that it was created by some splinter cell of the KGB. Despite this, it's clear that no Russians have set foot in it since its discovery, making it clean for any usage. Inside the Rook, the three find a secret room where Adler had been investigating the Pantheon after he found information planted by the group that incriminated him as a traitor. He fled to the Rook and continued his work, and believed that there was a mole in the CIA, and left behind his work for Woods to find and continue. Going over his notes, the trio discovered two leads for people Adler had considered bringing into the investigation: Sivadi Dumas and Felix Neumann. Marshall goes after Neumann, while Case is tasked with contacting Dumas to find out what Adler had her looking into, so he travels to the city of Avalon to find her. The city of Avalon plays a minor role in the overall plot of the game, but is the setting of several different missions. Found somewhere on the Mediterranean coast, Avalon is populated with the rich and powerful, where the criminal underworld rubs shoulders with legitimate businessmen. Everyone in Avalon is looking for their next move upwards in the city's power scheme, whether this move comes from the death of a rival, kidnapping, blackmail, or just pure political pressure. It matters not as long as the inhabitants continue to grow. This has led the city to seemingly become the setting of a John Wick movie, with assassinations and backroom deals being part of the daily life of its inhabitants. The climb to power has inspired dozens of like-minded individuals to join together to create organizations that fight for control of the city in both the criminal underground and the world of legitimate business. The strongest of such groups is the Guild, who hold the seat of power within Avalon and have created a network of contract killers, spies, and operatives that span not just the city, but the world. Sivedi Dumas is one of these operatives for the Guild, using her infiltration specialty to gather information and assassinate high-profile targets for a high price. Though, in recent years, she has gone solo, acting as a free agent for the different factions after she grew tired of the Guild's countless atrocities. She was contacted by Adler to pursue a possible lead on Pantheon, who are in talks for a business transaction which could evolve into an alliance with the guild. While Marshall looks into Adler's other lead, Case manages to contact Severi Dumas, who agrees to help their team with Pantheon in exchange for an attack on the guild. She uses Case as an assassin to take out a guild member named Yannick during a party on his yacht where he's orchestrating a deal with Pantheon. When the kill is confirmed, Severi picks up Case and the two travel to a nearby restaurant that serves as a location for the guild's leaders. Based on the information she's found, the three leaders of the guild have a meeting with Pantheon tonight, which they will be infiltrating by allowing Case to be captured, while Severi impersonates a guard. The plan goes off without a hitch, and a disguised Severi escorts Case into a meeting between the leaders of the guild and Pantheon, although the Pantheon representative is on a screen facing away from Case, so their identity remains a secret. The conversation they do manage to overhear confirms Adler's theory that Pantheon has moles within the CIA, or is functioning within the CIA, which is confirmed when the camera is pointed to Case and he is recognized immediately. By their orders, Case is nearly executed, but Severi manages to kill the attacker, and the two execute all guild leaders except one, who flees out into the streets. The two pursue him on foot and manage to flip his limo, killing him and completing Severi's mission. She says that Adler had a theory about a super weapon in Pantheon's possession, but he never truly laid it out to her. With their operation complete, the two leave Avalon to return to the Rook, where Marshall has returned with another new member. During the separation of Berlin into East and West, Felix Neumann served as a member of the Ministry of State Security, or the Stasi. This group was tasked with maintaining the state authority and keeping the Socialist United Party of Germany in control of East Berlin. Essentially, the German version of the KGB, all Stasi members were highly trained in combat, stealth, and infiltration, and often specialized in espionage to keep the Americans in West Berlin on their toes. Neumann specifically was a tech genius who put his talents to work against the CIA before he defected to West Berlin sometime prior to the fall of the Berlin Wall. With several years passing since his time in the service, Neumann has put violence behind him, but when Marshall presented the opportunity to stick it to the CIA one more time, he couldn't resist and joined up, with the caveat of being a support member, no violence involved. As the team decide their next step, everyone agrees with Woods that freeing Russell Adler and the information he holds is necessary for them to get to the bottom of what Pantheon is, their plan, and what the superweapon Severi was told of could be. Using Neumann's technological genius, the team are able to access the CIA's database to search for where Adler is being held. After several days of searching, they find his location to be in a CIA black site beneath Capitol Station, a location so secret that neither Marshall nor Woods had any knowledge of, despite their long history within the organization. Based on schematics they found, they need a retinal scan from somebody on the list consisting of higher-ranking politicians and CIA members. Luckily, there is a political event for the Clintons that a senator with access to the black site is attending. The team fly to America to attend the gala, where Case makes use of a specialized camera to get a working retinal scan before he regroups with Marshall to infiltrate the black site. Rappelling down the elevator shaft and opening the doors with a picture of the senator's eyes, they find the entry room filled with corpses. They find a wounded survivor who says that their attacker knew their schedules and layout prior to the attack, before dying, which Marshall reasons with Pantheon has struck before them and is targeting Adler. Moving through the compromised black site, they eventually find Adler being interrogated by Pantheon agents. Creating an explosion by compromising the power grid, they eliminate the enemy agents and confirm their identity to Adler before moving to leave the compound. After making it back to the elevator shaft, they are forced to change their escape plan when a bomb destroys the cables, making them take the stairs. Arriving back at the gala, they find Pantheon agents firing into the crowd and eliminate them, before realizing that the surrounding police force drawn by the gunshots are blocking their extraction. Using a pair of motorcycles on display, the three are able to escape the blockade and complete a moving dismount into an Exville van driven by Severi and Neumann. With the United States now placing Case, Marshall, and Adler on their most wanted list, and Interpol issuing red notices, Marshall takes a moment to call Harrow. He confirms that the CIA is compromised from the inside, and that the Capitol Station attack wasn't them, before asking her to keep looking for information that could help them fight Pantheon. He tells her to look into Livingston, who he suspects to be a possible traitor, before regrouping with the rest of the team to return to the Rook. With Adler now free, he reveals everything he's managed to uncover about Pantheon so far. When he was in Iraq meeting with Alawi, he was told that the paramilitary group was working with Saddam Hussein in a technologies exchange. Pantheon received covert facilities from Saddam, while the dictator received access to an experimental weapon the group possessed called the Cradle. Alawi had no idea what kind of weapon it was, only that they were experimenting with it in a bunker underground at one of Saddam's palaces. Before he killed Alawi, Adler was able to find which palace the bunker was located at, but getting in is going to be hard due to the recent invasion of the country with Operation Desert Storm. Based on information received from Adler's friend in MI6, Helen Park, the palace has been marked as a target for a large aerial bombing by the British Special Air Service, who ID'd it as a potential missile launch site. To get around this, Park has negotiated with the SAS for a delay in the bombing and transport to and from the palace, but, in exchange, Marshall's team will have to provide support destroying missile launch facilities across the desert. Agreeing to the deal, Case, Adler, and Marshall meet with Park and the SAS in Iraq and destroy several Scud missiles and their launchers, crippling the Iraqi military in the area. With their end of the bargain held up, the SAS commander provides the team with a helicopter and several men to assist in assaulting the palace. Arriving under heavy fire, Marshall, Case, and Adler are able to infiltrate the bunker, where they find no signs of Pantheon until they enter the sealed room. Within, they find a biohazard containment unit and a bright orange hard case containing a single vial with what they assume to be the Cradle. Finding a disc in Russian and a document packet, Adler is able to uncover the head scientist of the project as Matavi Gusev, a Soviet scientist who was attached to their biological weapons program during the Cold War. He had vanished from Russia the past year, and the group assumed that Pantheon had taken him in. Looking further, the team are surprised to see that the Cradle isn't Russian, but American in origin, but have no time to dig further as the countdown to the palace's destruction is fast approaching. Regrouping with the SAS team, they are able to secure a landing zone for a helicopter to exfil them, giving the group a first-class seat to the airstrike before the team return to the Rook with their new data. Despite the recovery of the disk that was with the documents, not even Neumann is able to break its encryption quickly, so they are forced to use other information to see their next step. Based on the information they found in the documents, the Cradle was a bioweapon developed in Kentucky under a company known as Advanced Technologies and Applications, a military research facility used as a cover for the CIA. Adler himself had worked there briefly, around a decade ago, where he witnessed unusual classified programs using human test subjects and believed the information on the Cradle will still be stored in the bioweapons section of the facility. Based on records, the entire compound was shut down suddenly and was quarantined after a biohazard incident, which the team believes to be related to the Cradle. Once again returning to the United States despite their most wanted status, Marshall and Case are joined by Savati and searching the compound for the Cradle-related information. When they arrive, Savati splits off looking for another entrance, while Case and Marshall find a recently cut lock that they used to enter. The elevator they land on breaks, sending Case plummeting to the wastewaters below. When he gets out of the water, he sees that the fall shattered his gas mask, exposing him to the fumes of the Cradle bioweapon that fills the halls of the compound. Despite facing extreme visual and auditory hallucinations of zombies, biological nightmares, and demon mannequins, Case is able to focus on the mission long enough to activate the elevator to the bioweapons lab, where Marshall and Savati have managed to enter through another entrance. After freeing Case from the hold of the Cradle, they manage to find themselves at 4 storage vats, which are supposed to contain the bioweapon, but 2 are missing, explaining where Pantheon got their hands on the supply. After recovering more data on the weapon, the 3 leave and return to the Rook to share their findings. I suppose here's as good a place as any to cover several important topics of Black Ops 6, the Cradle, Pantheon, and William Case Calderon. Developed in an Advanced Technologies and Applications bioweapons facility in eastern Kentucky, the Cradle was originally developed as a super soldier serum by a subsection of the CIA known as Pantheon, who were mainly dedicated to research and development. Going off of Case's fragmented hallucinations and memories, the Cradle project's end goal was to create enhanced humans while still keeping them sane. There is only one test subject of the Cradle, the first and last volunteer, William Calderon, or Case 1 as the scientist would soon call him, which is where his future call sign would originate from. After his initial exposure to the experiment, the Cradle seemed to be a success, giving Case enhanced speed and strength with no immediate side effects. But as time continued to pass, Case began showing signs of mood shifts and extreme violence, which ended with him being placed in isolation to be monitored. The side effects slowly turned him maniacal and violent, and he blamed everybody in the facility for turning him into what he had become. Seeing the project wouldn't bring them what they had hoped, the creators of the Cradle reworked their craft into a bioweapon instead, changing it so that what were originally side effects became the main goal. They enhanced the extreme violence by adding a hallucinogen that triggered the fight or flight reflex, but the violent tendencies and enhanced abilities would push them into attacking anybody, including allies. These bioweapon experiments continued until Case manages to escape his confinement and use the Cradle to attack the facility, killing several of the occupants, but not all. Case was eventually captured by the CIA during the quarantine, which allowed everything the Pantheon had done to be exposed to CIA Director Livingston. Uncomfortable with their extreme methods, Livingston shut down the Cradle program and dissolved the Pantheon branch of the CIA. Case was eventually rehabilitated and healed from his exposure, but was brainwashed by one of Pantheon's scientists to never speak of what he had seen or heard of during his time at the ATA. It is unknown if Livingstone was aware of this development, but it's likely that he was, as it was a part of the healing process. Despite several years passing and being almost completely healed, several recent re-exposures to the new Cradle bioweapon seem to have reawakened some memories within Case, and possibly even altering his behavior in the future. It's unknown at this point how Pantheon developed into the organization it is in 1991 after being dissolved, or even who its members are, but it is known that a majority of the members were former or current members of the US Armed Forces or other intelligence agencies. Most, if not all, of these men and women had been hurt or were disillusioned in some way by how the CIA and other agencies ran themselves and the world from the shadows, and hoped to fix it any way that they could. But their specific goals beyond the plot involving Harrow and the Cradle are unknown at this point. When the team arrives back at the Rook, Neumann calls everybody to the mission room, as he has finally cracked the disk Adler found with the documents at Saddam's base. Using the projector, he displays the disturbing recording he's uncovered from the disk's depths. It shows Gusev, the Soviet bioweapons expert, explaining the edits he's made to the Cradle, allowing it to become a virus that can jump from person to person, as two test subjects are put into a room to show how the violent effects have been improved in the new bioweapon. As the two kill each other, the camera pans to the room's other occupant, Jane Harrow, current CIA member, and someone Marshall thought that he could trust. As her betrayal sets in, he storms from the room, smashing the projector, but not before they hear Harrow tell the scientist a coded message, one that Savati seems to recognize, having heard it during her work in Avalon. Connecting the message to one of the factions within Avalon, the Lutazi group, they locate the target as Safebox B-24 in Casino Lutazi within Avalon, confirming Adler's suspicions that there was another group connected to Pantheon besides the guild within the city. The group have reason to believe that Pantheon is funding the bioweapons expert using laundered money through the casino, so they're hoping that whatever's in the box will point them to Gusev's location. With their target now set, the team plan and execute a heist on the casino using a multi-step plan. Savati and Neumann infiltrate the casino staff as a server and repair technician. Marshall enters as a high roller, which grants him access to the high roller room, closer to the security office than the main floor. While the team set off distractions to acquire the keycard to the vault, Case is tasked with getting himself captured by the casino security, so they bring him to a secret room near the safe boxes across the building. As Marshall's team executes a phony heist on the main vault and distracts security, Case is able to escape his captors and have full access to safe deposit box B-24, where he empties the contents within. The team regroup and escape with a planted boat in the underground canals that crisscross under Avalon and return to the Rook. When the documents are finally decoded, they have the information they were looking for. Pantheon were laundering money through the casinos and wiring them to a covert lab in southern Iraq where Gusev is working on the Cradle. Despite finding his location, their window of opportunity to grab the scientist is short, as approaching troops from Operation Desert Storm have scared him off, and they found that Gusev is planning on fleeing the country. In order to get into country and to the airport, Adler takes Case and Marshall to Kuwait where they contact Lawrence Sims, an old CIA buddy of Adler's from the Cold War who's moved into CENTCOM, or the United States Central Command. Sims is leading a tank line into Iraq, but has enough pull that he can divert a helicopter to the airport where Gusev is leaving from. Adler, Sims, and Case all act as the ground forces, while Marshall stays in the air to investigate with the Marine pilot. Despite making it to the plane in time, they find out that it was a diversion when they find no trace of the scientist, as Marshall reports a military cargo plane leaving on the other side of the airport. The three hop into a tank and cover the ground, making it just in time to fire a shell into the side of the cargo plane about to take off. With their target grounded, the three investigate the wreckage and interrogate the scientist upon finding him alive. He reveals that Pantheon has a research base in Vorkuta, Russia, where he sent the Cradle samples he was working on. Gusev is then handed into the possession of Sims, who will ensure that he's charged for his crimes, while the three regroup with the rest and begin traveling to Russia. The team arrive in Russia and promptly begin analyzing the base for potential weaknesses and vulnerabilities they can use to make their assault easier. Savati infiltrates using a stolen Pantheon uniform and sabotages their radar, attack helicopter, and anti-aircraft defenses, allowing the assault team to land in their helicopter unimpeded. Once on the ground, the team fight their way into the base, where they separate to clear a branching tunnel. Case is confronted and briefly captured by Harrow, who tries to make him see her perspective on the bioweapon, but she is quickly apprehended by Marshall and Savati, who had finished clearing the other tunnel. They push her for the location of the Cradle, but Harrow says that they have already sent it out to its target and it's long gone. With nothing else to show for it, the team take Harrow as a captive, hoping to interrogate more information out of her and return to the Rook. Despite several hours of interrogation and torture by the CIA's finest, Harrow refuses to break and give up Pantheon's plans when the team discover a tracker embedded deep within her forearm. With their location now compromised and assuming that Pantheon are going to attack them soon, Adler decides to bring out what can only be called as an experimental, dangerous, and probably against several forms of international laws, in the form of a drug known as separation. It somehow makes the victim create a second personality that is more docile and receptive to questioning by making them experience hallucinations that seem remarkably similar to those seen by the Cradle. The team begin interrogating her once the separation is in her system, with Marshall taking lead due to their closeness from their time in the CIA. Despite the interrogation going well, they are interrupted by the perimeter cameras detecting Pantheon forces coming from all sides. With the exception of Woods, who stays behind to continue the interrogation, the team head out to set up defenses and prepare for the assault. When the Pantheon forces arrive, the team are able to hold their ground, but as more come in from different angles and flanks, they are slowly but surely overrun. Neumann takes a bullet to the leg while detonating a bridge, but manages to hold on long enough for Woods to complete the interrogation. During the course of her time under the separation drug, Jane is forced to relive her childhood trauma that pushed her to join the CIA and later Pantheon. Both of her parents were CIA agents who raised her well despite the fact they are often gone on missions. One night when Jane was young, she was awoken to crashing noises and gunshots coming from downstairs. Her mother entered the room with a gun and told her to stay under the bed and out of sight before leaving the room once again. Scared and unsure of what is going on, Jane hid briefly before leaving her room and seeing her mom in a gunfight in the hallway with an armed intruder. Her presence distracted her mother, who tried to push her daughter away, allowing the invader to shoot her in the torso, killing her in front of Jane. Jane's father rushed in and pulled her back into their room and hid her within the closet before preparing an ambush for the attacker. Despite having the element of surprise, Jane's father is still killed in the shootout while she hides in the closet watching. The intruder then radios to somebody that the mission is complete and there are no complications. From inside the closet, watching her parents' murderer, Jane swore that she would never forget the intruder's voice no matter how long passed. For the next few decades, Jane would be accepted into the CIA, and after rising her way through the ranks, she would dedicate all of her free time to searching countless file rooms for anything related to her parents' murder. Not finding anything connecting her parents' murder, Jane is unable to find anything at all relating to her parents, which she finds incredibly suspicious as they were both longtime agents through the Cold War. Suspecting somebody is hiding something from her, she continues searching until one day a disc is suddenly slipped under her door by an unknown Pantheon agent. When she looked over the disc, she had found what she had feared was true. The CIA had ordered her parents' deaths, and even worse was that she knew the killer. Based on the documents she went over, the Harrows were killed by Russell Adler during an operation called Red Sweep, and despite the details not being available to us, it can be assumed that this was the CIA cleaning house of any possible Soviet double agents during the Cold War. With this new information damning the CIA, Jane accepted a high-ranking role at Pantheon and began to see their mission through. She falsified information on Adler, which ended with the CIA declaring him a traitor and a rogue agent. According to Jane, Pantheon's end goal was to bring about the downfall of the current CIA regime and replace it with one of their own, with her taking the director position, allowing the group to control the world as they saw fit from the shadows. To accomplish this, they gave Saddam Hussein a sample of the Cradle to show that he had possession of it before they would set off a false flag operation, detonating a Cradle bomb within the US Capitol, estimating that it would infect a large area of Washington, D.C. before it was contained. Then, using their media connections, they would run a propaganda campaign against the CIA, saying that the agency was incompetent and unable to complete their main objective of keeping Americans safe under the current leadership. Their political and military connections would then push to revolutionize the CIA, allowing them to place Harrow as its leader, giving them complete control of America's Black Ops. As Mason manages to get the new information from Harrow, Case, Adler, Savati, Neumann, and Marshall are still fighting off Pantheon's invading forces outside. Despite doing their best, they are eventually flanked by their enemies who manage to gain access to the house. With Woods finishing the interrogation, he is able to grab a shotgun and briefly defend himself against a squad, but a riot shield operative manages to take him down. The agents free Harrow, who reacquires the sample of the Cradle from Iraq, then takes Woods' knife and slowly stabs him with it before leaving him on the ground to die. While this is happening, Case and the team are desperately fighting their way back to the room, where they arrive in time to save Mason, but Jane is already leaving. Case and Marshall go after her, and are able to shoot her once she's getting into the helicopter, but it's non-lethal. In response, a Pantheon agent fires a rocket into the building, and the rubble falling traps Marshall, who tells Case to go after her. Case manages to reach the helicopter before it takes off, and grabs its landing gear as it lifts into the air. Attempting to climb up, he takes out a soldier, throwing him from the craft, but is kicked out by Harrow. He manages to use the fall to grab the other landing gear, taking out the other guard before grabbing Harrow once again. In the struggle, Jane's pistol fires once, accidentally killing the pilot and sending the helicopter spinning into the water below. Upon impact, both Case and Harrow are knocked out, but manage to come around at the same time. The interior is filling with water at an alarming rate, but Jane attacks once again, saying that everything is ruined but it can be saved as she can escape. In a desperate move, Case smashes her head with a sample of the Cradle, stunning her, and releasing the bioweapon into the limited air around them. Having already been exposed to the Cradle prior, Case is able to recover first and attack as the hallucinations begin to set in once again. Harrow is stuck experiencing the hallucinations for the first time, and is forced to watch as Case chokes her to death before he himself promptly passes out. It is unknown whether Case or Harrow survived at this point. Only time, and a future sequel, will be able to tell us. Despite being stuck in the blackness, he is able to overhear snippets of conversation between the rest of the team telling him that they managed to contact Livingston in Washington and stop the impending attack. 2 weeks later, Adler, Woods, and Marshall are contacted by Livingston, who wishes to meet up. Newman and Savati tag along as sniper support in case this turns out to be a trap, and the ex-CIA agents meet again with their former boss. Livingston starts by thanking them for their actions over the past 2 months, and apologizes for not being able to help them out more during their trials. He offers the team full funding and support as an off-books Black Ops team, since their unique status as fugitives gives them the ability to move through unofficial channels and act where the government cannot, while still giving the CIA plausible deniability for their actions. Livingston acknowledges the need for global gunslingers now that Pantheon is exposed, and they still don't know who their backers are, what their future goals could be, or even who all of their agents are. The entire time this conversation is happening, somebody has infiltrated Livingston's office and is hacking his computer looking for something, although it's unknown what it is for now.